Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is about training, and we're going to discuss when to stay the course or when to try something new. So this is a question that comes up with anybody who's been kind of doing health and fitness or even a diet. This doesn't have to be training necessarily. This can include nutrition as well. But anybody that's been doing something for a little while now, it could be, say 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months, a year, 5 years. If you've done something consistent and you've done it long enough, you're going to notice that there's ups and downs to the process. So sometimes things go easy, sometimes they're difficult, sometimes things go quick, sometimes they go slow, and sometimes when we're in those slower periods, we're not sure if what we're doing is still working. Are we in a lull where we kind of have to wait for things to take effect, or are we wasting time? Are we kind of spinning our wheels? And I wanted to kind of cover a little bit about the thought process behind when to decide, okay, I just need to buckle down and stay where I'm at and kind of quote unquote double down on the effort, double down on this approach. Or when is it time to try something new? Cut your losses, realize you're just kind of spinning your wheels, wasting time, and it's time to try something different. So we're going to talk through that and kind of give you guys a little questions to ask, things to think of, what to look into, to kind of have the decision of which way to go. So let's first look at being plateaued. And what this, that was a weird way of saying that, plateaued. But anyhow, you're at a plateau, and you're not a goofball like me who just got sidetracked. But anyhow, you got great results initially with what you were doing, but things have kind of slowed down and they've kind of stalled out, and now you're not really sure, do I need to change it? Was it right or was I lucky? What do I do now? And typically, if we look at training, so maybe you started an exercise routine, a program or a certain style of training or something like that, and you got great results right away, but now things have kind of slowed down and you're kind of plateaued. So the first thing we want to look at is nutrition. This is a weird one to mention at first, but for most people. But your nutrition plays a huge role in how well training programs work. So if you are underfed, your body isn't fueled to make the changes that you want. So when you're in the gym, everything you do in the gym is a signal to the body to make a change in a direction. Now, if you do really high rep endurance type stuff, you're signaling the body to make a change in the endurance direction. If you do really heavy weights and say strength-based activities, you're signaling the body to make a change in the strength direction. But when you're in the gym, you're not actually making improvements other than technique improvement, but you're not growing your muscle then. You're not building your strength then. You might improve your technique and be able to show more strength than what you could show previously, but that would still be just showing of what you had when you walked in the gym. When you leave the gym, you're not leaving with more strength. You have to go home, sleep, eat food, and recover, and your body will make the changes that your training asks of the body, and then that's how you make progress. Now, how do we get those changes to occur? A good portion of it is going to come from protein. So protein is what our body uses to fix and repair muscle and also build new muscle. Protein is involved in improving kind of our neural connections with muscles. And there's a whole bunch of nitty-gritty sciencey stuff in there. But in general, you need to have a good amount of protein for you to recover well from your training and make the adaptations that you wanted from your training. And that's even endurance-based. So a lot of endurance activities are pretty aggressive on the joints. So you think about if you go out and run 2 miles, that's a lot of impact. Every time you're running, you're taking a step with your full body weight on one leg. And you're doing that repetitively for 10, 20 minutes? That's a lot of stress on your joints. So you have to make sure you eat enough protein to repair those joints. And then also the activity of running itself, unless you're doing sprint-based or interval-based stuff, just long duration, steady state, slow cardio actually promotes muscle loss. So you have to have enough protein in there to kind of counteract that. So if we don't have our nutrition correct, we won't get the response from our training that we want. Now, when you initially started, everything was so daggum new to your body, it had to adapt or die, essentially. And you probably would have started with more kind of overeating compared to your activity level at that time, and or more stored body fat, more reserves in the tank, so to speak. And then all of a sudden, as your exercise became routine, and your nutrition either stayed the same, or sometimes we dial it down because we want to lose weight, so we actually eat less. Your resources for your body to make recoveries and improvements from training to training session really got low. So if you undereat, you will adapt to your training. Then also there's the individual performance of each training session. So if I try to go into every workout and I'm not fed properly, I'm not going to perform really well. I'm not going to have the best endurance that I could have. I'm not going to have the best strength that I could have. I'm not going to have the best overall efficiency. So therefore the signal that I can send to my body through that session is going to be significantly lessened. So again, if you started how you started your training, if your nutrition has changed since then, or if you didn't change it at all, and now all of a sudden you have all of this extra activity that you never had before, you can be coming in and probably underperforming at your workouts. And therefore you're sending a smaller signal of change to your body than from at the beginning. So you're going to get smaller and smaller incrementally of results out of your training. So nutrition is by far the first thing to look at. So you have to make sure, is my nutrition correct? And every podcast we've done up until now, we have a ton of nutrition podcasts. So go listen to podcast number 41. That tells you the basics of what is involved in nutrition and what you should look at. What's the most important things to consider. And the first one, for example, is calories. So I forget the podcast number, but you can use the search function on whatever kind of provider you're at, whether you're on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. Try to use the search function and type in calories, and you'll find the podcast we did in the past about how many calories do I need per day. And but there's nutrition information out there, so I don't want to get too lost into that because we'll lose the rest of the podcast here. But the first thing to look at is nutrition. Then we want to look at technique. So am I doing what I'm doing correctly? And therefore, am I sending this best signal for change? So if our technique is crap, then the signal that you're sending to the body is going to be crap. So if you want bigger biceps, and you're dry humping the air and swinging your hips involved, and every time you do a bicep curl, you're not stimulating your biceps maximally, you're stimulating your whole freaking body, and you're reducing the isolation on the biceps, and you probably look like an idiot in the gym, but you're going to get less and less results because you're not actually sending that stimulus of the training signal exactly where you want it. It's getting spread out amongst a bunch of other muscles that you don't want. So, understanding proper technique is extremely important. Also, if we're doing like squat, bench, and deadlift, kind of the big lifts, or if you're strongman, you're doing logs, stone loads, tire flips, stuff like that, the more technically proficient you are, the more intense of a stimulus that you can send. So, for example, if my technique is so poorly I can only squat 225, but if I learned new technique and all of a sudden I can squat 250, that 250 is going to send a better signal of change than the 225 would. So that's the idea of technique, is when your technique is better, your stimulus signal per workout, even per exercise, per set, per rep, can be better. So that's what you want to look at there. So is my nutrition correct? Is my technique correct? Then we also have expectations. So maybe I started a program and, I've been kind of working on my squat, bench, and deadlift, and I wanted to get a 20-pound increase on my bench, for example. And I'm like, what the hell? Why have I not gained 20 pounds on my bench? It's been a solid month. You're not going to gain 20 pounds on your bench in 1 month. You, maybe if you're absolutely freaking brand new, but that stuff slows down. So if you're looking at strength progressions, when somebody's brand new, their technique is so horrible that there's a huge room for improvement. As you get better and better technique, there becomes smaller and smaller room to improve. It's always there, and you're always going to work on technique. You're always going to be learning new stuff. So technique never kind of is perfect. You're going to work on that for the rest of your life. But your window of improvement in technique gets smaller and smaller and smaller over time. So therefore, your change of strength demonstration, the way you can show your strength, gets a smaller and smaller potential increase. So maybe the first month, I didn't get 10 pounds strong. My bench might have went up 10 pounds. I didn't get 10 pounds stronger. I just got 10 pounds better at showing my strength. So the other example we have would be is like just anything, like really any exercise, even if you're not doing strength-based stuff. If you're doing like bodybuilding, and like we said with the biceps, is say I'm doing lateral raises and I want to grow my shoulders, but at first I don't really know what I'm doing. So you're over-involving the wrong muscles. So by learning the better technique, that'll improve the quality of the stimulus you'll send. And then when we talked about expectations is, at first, you might have gotten a big effect because of how new everything was. So that's a big thing with bodybuilding. I got lost there a little bit. Sorry about that. This is the loveliness of doing this stuff live. So somebody was trying to message me. So we talked about nutrition, technique, and expectations. So within expectations, so like we said, is are you expecting stuff too soon? So for strength progressions, it's going to come fast at first and then slow down. So when you're like 3, 4, 5 years into training, it might take you months to gain 5 pounds on a lift. And that's just normal. With bodybuilding, like we said, if your kind of nutrition is on point, your technique is slowly improving, you're going to get good results at first, but then things do slow down. And bodybuilding is a very slow sport in general. So you can work your butt off for an entire year just to gain 10 to 12 pounds of muscle. So that's only 1 pound of muscle a month. And that's actually a pretty successful year. So sometimes your expectations are going to be like, hey, you know, I wanted to start lifting weights because I want to look like The Rock. And what the hell, it's been 3 months, I don't look like The Rock. Well, The Rock didn't look like The Rock in 3 months, okay? So it's going to take you longer than 3 months. So having the right expectations for what you want your result to be, that's going to be a big thing. So you have to kind of look into that and say, am I expecting too much too soon? Then adherence. This is a big one because we're all really good at lying to ourselves. And we're going to say, man, my nutrition is perfect, my technique is perfect, I never miss a day in the gym. And then whenever you would write this down and you would track it, you'd realize, oh, okay, you eat 2 or 3 good meals a day, but then you miss a meal here. You take the weekends completely off because you're hanging around with friends, or you get out and about and get kind of sidetracked. So you find out you're only really doing your food right 4.5 days out of 7 every week. That's not that great. And maybe every 2 weeks you're missing 1 or 2 workouts. That is not good either. So we have to track our adherence. And that is a huge importance, because we're all going to think that we're doing our best. Actually, what's sad is we are going to think that we actually are doing our best, but our best isn't good enough. So you have to better your best. So we have to track our adherence and make sure, are you really following your plan? So when you say, oh, my plan isn't working, is it the plan not working or is it you not working? Okay? So we have podcasts in the past talking about adherence and how to track that. But in general, you can just do an app on your phone. And like I use an app on my phone, and I'll have like a chart that has like a monthly calendar. And every day I mark off whether I got my workout in or not that day. So just a check or an X. You can do that for your meals. So you can set up for like having like 5 checks a day. And you can check off every meal you have. And you can see by the end of the week, you know, did I make all my meals? Did I miss 3 or 4? Or did I miss like 10? So just some type of tracking your adherence will help a lot, because you're going to think that you're doing things right. But are you really? So that's going to help. So if you've plateaued, you got great results initially, but things have kind of stalled out. Look at your nutrition. Look at your technique. Are your expectations correct? And then are you actually following the plan? If you're doing all of that, your nutrition is on point, your technique is on point, your expectations are appropriate, like you're expecting the right thing when it should come, and your adherence has been pretty damn well spot on, like say 90%. If all of that is covered and you're still plateaued, then it might be time to try something new. Okay? So we'll talk about that, what the new stuff is here in a second. Now, the other category we have for people feeling frustrated or not sure if they should continue their current plan or try something new is if they continually cycle through good and bad. So they have periods where things go well, so they're taking like 2 steps forward, but then they have things that just kind of don't go well, and they take 2 steps back. So an example of this sometimes is people coming back from an injury. So they got injured, they kind of set up a new plan, they're doing something, it works really well for like a couple weeks or even a month, and then all of a sudden they have a really crappy week or 2, and kind of just like feel like they lost everything. Then everything goes really well, and then all of a sudden back again. And there's a couple other reasons and life situations that would contribute to that. So, but if that's you, if you feel like, well, I'm not plateaued, like I do make some progress, but then I lose it, and then this comes up, then that comes up. So I know the plan works, I can't get it to work all the time. So then, what we want to look at is number one, adherence. So if you feel like you're cycling, are you actually doing well and following it for the times that it feels good, and then all of a sudden something is getting in the way, or you're deprioritizing your plan to make room for something else. And that's where you're getting in trouble. So this is something that does happen. Life happens. It gets in our way. So if you feel like you're kind of cycling through, check your adherence, and you might find that, for example, you do really well Monday through Friday, but you kind of crap the bed on Saturday and Sunday. And Saturday and Sunday kind of like mess you up for Monday, and maybe by Tuesday you feel like you're getting your groove, then you feel really good Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then back to feeling like crap. So see if there's a cycle in your adherence levels, and that might show you why there's a cycle in your progress. Okay? The next thing you want to look at is nutrition. So these are the same components, but these are the right orders for you to look at. So again, if you feel like you're cycling, look at adherence first, then look at nutrition. So like we said, is maybe you're just eating just well enough that your body has some reserves, but once you start pushing your training, it drops back off, and you don't have enough reserves, and the results follow, and they kind of go down. So sometimes your nutrition is just barely adequate, so every time you try to push, you get set back and you go back. So if you feel like you're doing that, then look at your nutrition. You might need to eat more. You might need to eat less, depending on what your goal is. You might need to change up what you're eating. You don't need more or less. You just need more protein, more carbs, or more fats, or a variance of those. Maybe your meal timing is just garbage, so you have to improve your meal timing. You don't have to change your calories. You're having enough protein, but you're eating at the wrong times. So maybe you're eating mostly at night, but then you try to train in the morning on an empty gas tank. And you wonder why you're weak in your workouts, but you're getting fatter, because you're eating all your calories at a time when your body didn't need them. So matching meal timing can make a huge difference on your aesthetics and performance, because you're fueled when you need the fuel, and then you're not overeating when you don't need it, and accidentally or unintentionally storing body fat. So meal timing is something that has a big effect. Then you want to look at technique. So like we said, are you doing what you're doing well? Are you doing it correctly? And that's going to help. So technique-wise, for example, in somebody who's cycling, is you might do really well at your bench, and then all of a sudden your elbow kind of hurts for a week or two. And then you kind of go back, you feel like your elbow's a little better, you go back to your bench, but now all of a sudden your shoulder hurts. There's probably something wrong with the way you're benching, that you're annoying the crap out of your joints. So, and it would be any movement, squat, deadlift, whatever. So maybe you're getting elbow tendonitis, and that keeps flaring up and over again, and is really influencing and affecting what you can do in your workouts. So you need to look at that, and you need to see, okay, is my technique correct, or is my technique incorrect, and that's what's causing some of these cyclical injury or small annoyances. Then the other thing we look at in combination with that is recovery concerns. So maybe you push really hard, and this is true in strength athletes, is they'll push really hard, feel really good for a couple weeks, and then they feel like crap and feel like somebody ran them over with a truck for a couple weeks. Then what's happening is they push their training too aggressively for their recovery methods. Their body kind of revolts back against them and downgrades everything to help them try to recover better. So it decreases its performance ability to help everything catch back up. So again, if you're a powerlifter, some powerlifting programs, they involve what's called a deload week, where they'll train intensely for, say, 3 to 7 weeks. Then they might take a week, quote unquote, off from the gym, or lessen their volume or lessen their intensities. They'll do something that's on purpose a downgrade, and they hope that they recover from any kind of accumulating injuries that haven't shown themselves yet during that recovery week. So maybe they train really hard for 3 weeks, and they know, man, if I push this another week or two, I'm going to start getting hurt, or things are going to start to not feel good. So let me just kind of take a down week and then cycle back up. So that is helpful, absolutely. So if you are cycling in your progress, but not doing it on purpose, you're doing it accidentally, you might want to purposely put in something like what's called a deload week, or a week in which you kind of downgrade a little bit about what you do. If you're a strength athlete, you want to downgrade volume, but keep your intensity high. If you're muscle building, you want to keep your weight load down, but keep your volume high. And that way you kind of keep your muscle mass or keep your strength, depending on which way you want things to go for you. So that's the concern. Now, if you're feeling like you're cycling in your progress, you're taking 2 steps forward but 2 steps back, and you track your adherence, you know you're doing things consistently, you track your nutrition and it seems to be on point, your technique is good, and your recovery seems to be on point, but yet you're still going up and down, well then your programming might be crap, and you might need to try something new. Okay? So those are some areas to think of. Now, when we do try something new, what in the world do we, like, what should we do, all that stuff? The idea that I'm going to leave you with is more conceptual rather than a defined answer. Because if you're a strong man versus an athlete versus a bodybuilder versus powerlifter versus a general person just trying to get fit, it's too varied on what you guys should do in terms of specifics, so we'll give you some concepts to think of. So, if you're going to do something new, level up. Do something new better, okay? So don't do another blind new where you just try something. Educate. Try something a better new, okay? So talk with somebody who's more educated on your goal. So if you've reached a plateau or you've reached something that's no longer working, don't take the same knowledge you have and try to make it work again. If it didn't work this time, how the hell would it work? Why would it work again, okay? So find a way to improve your knowledge or the quality of what you're doing. So talk to somebody who's more educated, okay, and not bro science necessarily, actual science. So because if you go to the biggest guy in the gym, if your goal is to build muscle, you go to the biggest guy in the gym, he might not have a freaking clue why he's big. He was just born big, had really good genetics, eats like a jerk, like just eats a bunch of fast food and crap, but somehow stays thin, and he just doesn't do anything special. He just kind of sits in the gym and moves weights around for 2 hours, and he somehow grows well. So that there can be something learned from somebody who has done it themselves. However, the best case scenario to find is somebody who has formal education and applied experience. And what I mean by applied experience means they've helped other people. So you want to find somebody who knows the whys, so they know the science of why things work, and you want to find somebody who's applied that to themselves and other people. And the reason why is everyone is different. So what got somebody to, like, you know, a crazy heavy squat isn't going to get the next person to the same squat because they're built differently. Or deadlift or bench or like any kind of strength thing. So if you find somebody who has like world records in something or they've won competitions, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the best teacher for you. Okay? So find somebody who maybe has that stuff or is a high level athlete but has also taught other people. So for example, in strength activities, different torso lengths, different femur lengths, different upper arm lengths, so humerus bone, different lengths of those things will influence the positions that each person needs to be in. So if somebody is teaching you their position, and they don't even tell you like, well, this is the way I do it, let's start here and see how you do it, and they just go, well, this is the way to do it. No. So do not follow that person. So everybody's a little bit different. So when you have knowledge of how to help people do technique of things, there has to be variance for the way in which things are done. Yes, there are universal truths, okay, that certain things need to be done with a thing in mind, but how you apply that or how you address it or how you get there has to be different per person, okay? So find somebody who has education, formal education, and then find somebody who has applied experience. Those are the best people to look for, okay? Now, you can find them in person at your gym, you can find them online, you can find them wherever, but just look for that. Look for somebody who's been there, done that, but all that for other people too, okay? So, if you're going to try something new, that would be what I wanted to leave you guys with was, don't do something just where you're at now. So don't take the knowledge that you took into your last plan and apply it to a new plan. Get smarter, get more knowledge. Try to make a better approach this time. So if the last time it got you something, but it plateaued, that means that there was a piece missing. Go find that missing piece. Go learn what that might be. And then try the next thing. Okay? So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to handle this. So, when deciding to stay the course or to try something new, if you're plateaued or whether you feel like you're cycling, some components we want to look at are nutrition. Make sure nutrition's on point. Make sure your technique is good. Is your adherence levels, are you actually doing what you think you're doing? And then are your expectations correct? And then your recovery concerns. Those were all kind of like along the list. So we want to look into all of that. You want to look into all of that with your current plan. So if you don't address those things and you just keep hopping from plan to plan to plan, and no plans seem to work for you, you are not so damn special that no plan will ever work for you. Okay? You're not that special. You're probably just not addressing one of these other concerns. So if I don't have proper nutrition, any plan I try to run won't work. If I don't even follow the plan correctly, any plan I try won't work. So you have to address these underlying things first before whatever you do new has a chance to work too. Okay? So look into this stuff. Hopefully it gave you some ideas and a thought process to go through and try to address this question for yourself. Cool. So if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. Also, if you like the podcast, you can sign up to become a patron of the podcast by donating $10 or more a month. And for your donation, we'll send you programming. And it can be on any topic you want. So programming for any goal. And if you'd like to do so, if you'd like to become a patron, you can do so on the Podbean app. You can send us an email or do a Google search, Become a Patron, Brutal Iron Gym Podcast. And if you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. So the more people we help, the happier the world will be. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. So this podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. And you can reach us at our email at brutalironGym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.